And I better push that button so you can actually see me. I made my first mistake already. I've got new editing equipment here. It's a Wirecast software. It allows me to switch between, here you can see my whiteboard, and then I can go back to me. And then I can also I can also bring up a screen. This is what we're going to be talking about today. So everybody keeps asking me, what's up with Donald Trump and the Sweden comments? And you may have seen in the news that Donald Trump said recently at his press conference, I guess it was, he said, quote, "We've got to keep our country safe. You look at what's happening in Germany, you look at what's happening last night in Sweden." And then everybody said, "What happened last night in Sweden? We don't know about anything happening in Sweden. What's up with that?" So a lot of people came to me and they said, "Hey, you're the Trump explainer. Can you explain to us why Trump thinks something is happening in Sweden, something about immigration or crime or something? We don't know. We can't find that story. What's it all about?" Now, it turns out that Trump later went to Twitter to clarify. I'll show you that. So he went to Twitter to clarify, and I have to confess I'm showing off a little bit my editing ability here. So on his tweet, he said, "My statement as to what's happening in Sweden was in reference to a story that was broadcast on Fox News concerning immigrants in Sweden." And he was talking about apparently a Tucker Carlson piece in which he talked about the situation in Sweden. So there wasn't a specific event, but there was a story last night about events. So Trump is saying, "Well, I just misspoke." My liberal friends all contacted me both on Twitter and by email, and they said to me, "What's up with this crazy guy? He's like just totally making stuff up now. He's completely made up this thing about events happening in Sweden." So let me talk about this. We're going to switch over to my whiteboard, and we're going to talk about how you can tell who's crazy and who's not. All right. So here's a little whiteboard that I put together just to kind of summarize it. So this is the who's crazier. Now, you know the basic definition of crazy is that if you do the same things over and over again and they don't work, that's the definition of crazy. So let's see if Trump or the anti-Trumpers are doing the same thing over and over again and it not working. Which one of them is doing that? Because that would tell you who's crazy, right? So we see Trump, who often says things which are not true. Now, he might be doing it deliberately. He might simply have less information and not care. So sometimes he's just misspeaking. It's not really a lie, and it's not that he doesn't care. He was just talking about a lot of stuff, and some of it came out wrong. Very normal things. So in this case, it doesn't matter for what I'm talking about now. It doesn't matter why he did it, all right? Because you can never really get in somebody's head that far. But he says a lot of things that simply don't pass the fact checking. And what's the result of that? Well, take the case of Sweden, which is typical. What he does is he makes you think about that thing that wasn't true until it becomes true. So he said something terrible happened in Sweden, and you said, "That's not true." And then you looked into it, and then the media said, "Well, we better at least see what's happening in Sweden. There must be something happening in Sweden." And next thing you know, there's all kinds of stories about how Sweden is having their own immigration problem with crime. Now, I'm not going to give an opinion about how bad it is or how bad it's, or how good it is. The only point is that Trump, through his in a non-factual statement, made you think about exactly what he wants you to think about, which is, hey, immigrants might bring with them crime. And maybe it's already happening in Sweden, and that's a good example to look at. Now, what would be less crazy than continuing to do something that works every time? And it works just the way he wants it to work. Now, he could try to be honest every time. How would that work? Well, it would work like it worked for Jimmy Carter. It sort of wouldn't work at all. Because first of all, you don't think anything a politician says is terribly true to begin with. So the truth has a limited usefulness in politics. But it wouldn't work. It wouldn't make you focus where you wanted to. It just wouldn't get the job done. Now let's look at the anti-Trumpers. what do? So they've got a go-to as well, which is no matter what he does, especially if he says something that's untrue or just something they don't like, they say, he's Hitler, he's a dictator, he's a fascist, he's Hitler. How does that work out for them? Because it's their go-to. It's what they do all the time, right? So if you're doing something all the time and it works, you are perfectly sane, and you're not only sane, you're probably a good role model. But if you do something that destroys your entire political party, not only in the present, but possibly in the future forever, like you've literally made your entire political party irrelevant, I gotta say that's not the best strategy. So here we have Trump using a continuous strategy of hyperbole, he would call it, but other people would say, that damn liar. Doesn't matter what you label it, the facts don't match, all right? Whether you're for him or against him, we all agree on that, right? His facts are not gonna pass the fact checking too often. But his outcomes, let's see, he made billions of dollars, he won the presidency when nobody thought he would, the stock market's up, consumer optimism is up, hasn't been a terror attack lately, and he's making you focus on his priorities. That's all working. Not only that, but it keeps working every time he does it. He does it over and over and over again, and every time it works. These people, hasn't worked yet. 0 success. And all they get is this. But according to them, this situation describes Trump being crazy. Now, I'm not going to defend Trump's mental state. He is a certain age, and when you get that age, especially when there's some dementia in the family, I think, you can't rule out that there might be some dementia crawling in there. I'm not going to be the guy that makes that case. I don't know what's happening inside his skull. I can just tell you what's happening outside of his skull. And the things he's doing is working consistently. And the things the other side is doing fail consistently. So that's the only part we know. All right, let me go back to my other camera here. Now, having said all that, I can look at your comments coming in. By the way, your comments come in about, I don't know, half a minute after I say stuff, so it's a little hard for me to switch back and forth. But I'm trying to read them on my monitor. I've got a monitor that's just below me, right here. It's hooked up below the camera. I have too much drop down on Periscope. All right, so I'm running this simultaneously on Periscope. So I've got the Periscopers are over on one side, and I'm gonna move the Periscopers so they've got a better view of me. YouTube didn't notify you. There might be some kind of notification that I have to turn on there. All right, so how's the sound? The people on YouTube, oh, you're seeing the whiteboard, sorry. Yeah, there's another button I have to hit. I always keep forgetting to hit the button that makes it live. There's 2 settings out here, one where it's automatically live and one where you have to hit the button. Yeah, you Periscopers are special to me, I'll say that. But I don't know if Periscope's gonna last, I don't know if Twitter's gonna last. I think YouTube has better long-term potential. Sound is way better on YouTube. All right, so the sound I'm using is I've got a lavalier clip-on mic, and I'm going to my high-end camera over there, and that's coming back. So you guys couldn't read the whiteboard on Periscope. So if you don't mind on YouTube, I'm going to show the Periscopers what I was doing, just to make sure you've seen it. And then I'll go back to me. All right. Now, sooner or later, I know I'm going to have a hot mic situation and all this, and I'm going to say something terrible that I don't know is being live streamed to the world. So let me say in advance, I apologize for whatever I haven't said yet that I'm sure I will. That will be caught on a hot mic. All right, so let's try to end here. I'll make my one point about Trump and his Sweden comment and his craziness. I'll try to keep to one major point per these broadcasts, but I don't want to go too far because I don't know the technology is working the way I want it to. Why is this camera dark and small? Good question. I'm looking at the main feed from the camera itself, and the lighting is good and it looks about right. But you're right, it does seem small. Why is that? I'll have to figure that out. The whiteboard camera was full screen and your camera isn't. So there must be a setting on there to fix that. And I will look into that and I'll get that fixed. All right. I'm going to talk to you all later. Bye for now.